Every human being walks through life with a hidden tool more powerful than any pill, more immediate than any therapy, more ancient than any tradition, and it lives right beneath their nose. There is a switch inside you that most people will never find. It doesn't sit in the brain's cortex or hide within some abstract mental exercise. It's in the lungs, it's in the rhythm between inhale and exhale. One breath, the right kind of breath, has the power to shift your entire internal state. Because the body does not wait for thoughts to decide how to feel, it listens to the breath, and the breath speaks directly to the nervous system. When you're under pressure, when your mind races, when fear takes hold, your breath becomes shallow and rapid, a signal to the brain that danger is present. That single signal activates the sympathetic nervous system. Your heart rate spikes, cortisol rises, vision narrows. You're not thinking clearly anymore, you're surviving. But the same system that was wired for danger was also built to respond to control. The moment you take conscious command of your breath, you send a new signal. You're not a victim. You're not hunted. You're awake. A long, slow exhale, deeper than normal, instantly begins the shift. The vagus nerve hears it. The heart rate drops, the amygdala softens, and suddenly the same brain that was drowning in stress begins to open. Focus returns. Awareness sharpens. The inner storm doesn't vanish, but it obeys you. This is not spiritual metaphor. It is physiological design. It is ancient and sacred, written into the architecture of your biology. Breath is the only system in your body that is both automatic and under your control. That was not an accident. That was intention. That was engineering for dominion to give you access to command the state of your own mind. And this access is not earned through years of discipline. It begins the moment you use it. A single breath, rightly taken, is not just a coping mechanism. It is alignment with divine order. It is the body obeying spirit. It is flesh submitting to will. When you master the breath, you are not just calming down, you are rising up. You are stepping into the place where emotion bows to intention, where chaos kneels before clarity. The world may rage, but the breath becomes your altar, the place you return to reclaim your center. The shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic is not theoretical. It is the literal shift from panic to presence. And it starts within seconds of changing your breath. You don't need to wait for your environment to calm down. You don't need to run away or escape. You don't even need to speak. You only need to breathe slowly, deeply, like someone who knows they are not at the mercy of what's around them. Like someone who has been given the switch, because this is not weakness, this is war. This is mastery of the system that controls the battlefield of the mind. And it begins with one breath. Your breath is not just air moving through your lungs, it's a command line to your brain, a direct input to the control centers that regulate emotion, focus, and fear. Inside your skull, there are structures that operate moment to moment based on what your breath is telling them. The amygdala, the insula, the prefrontal cortex, all of them interpret signals coming from your body to decide how alert, how anxious, how focused, or how present you should be. And at the center of those signals is one simple, powerful rhythm, your breathing pattern. Shallow, chaotic, unconscious breathing creates noise in the system. It tells the brain we're in danger, we're not safe, and the brain believes it, it acts accordingly. It pumps stress hormones, it disrupts focus, it narrows your perspective. You begin to feel overwhelmed not because the world is too big, but because your brain has been told, breath by breath, to panic. But when you change the breath, you change the instruction. You're not managing stress, you're retraining the command centers of your nervous system. A deep nasal inhale, held briefly, followed by a long exhale, that single cycle tells your brain something different. It says, we are in control, there is space, there is time, there is order. That breath doesn't just travel through your airways, it travels through your brainstem, through the vagus nerve, through the circuits that decide whether you'll operate in survival mode or executive command. This is not about self-help. This is hard science. This is how the brain was wired to respond not just to the world outside, but to the breath inside. The same breath that collapses a man under fear can resurrect his clarity with a shift in pattern. You are not trapped by your thoughts. You are not bound by your emotions. Those are downstream. Breath is upstream. Breath is where the river begins. When you learn to use it intentionally, you stop reacting and start rewiring. You stop coping and start commanding. And the circuits in your brain that once fired in fear begin to fire in clarity. This is how you reframe your inner world, not by arguing with your thoughts, but by breathing in a way that tells your brain the battle has already been won. That you are not prey, you are not lost, you are not weak, you are aware, you are aligned, you are in control of the instrument that controls everything else. The brain follows the breath, and the breath is yours to command. Thoughts are slow, emotions are reactive. But breath is instant. It bypasses the noise, it cuts through the fog, it reaches places in your nervous system that words never could. When the mind is overwhelmed, when the heart is racing, when your chest feels tight and your decisions begin to fragment, you don't need to reason your way back. You need to breathe your way back. Because breath is the fastest way to regulate the entire nervous system. It's the key that turns down the volume on fear and lights up the circuitry of calm. You can't think your way out of a panic response, not because your thoughts are wrong, but because they're arriving too late. The signal has already hit the body. The adrenaline is already surging. The brain has already made the shift into survival mode. But breath can meet that moment head on, and faster than anything else, it can flip the switch. The reason breath is so powerful is because it speaks in the language of the body. Your diaphragm, your lungs, your vagus nerve, they don't listen to affirmations. They respond to rhythm. They respond to pace. They respond to intention encoded in physical action. When you inhale deeply through the nose and extend the exhale longer than the inhale, you activate a hidden power. The baroreceptors in the heart send a message to the brainstem, which sends a message back to the limbic system. Stand down, slow down, let go. One breath like this can soften a surge of cortisol. 2 can widen your focus. 3, and the mind begins to stabilize. This is the system you were born with, not to survive in constant panic, but to modulate your state moment by moment with wisdom. This is not ancient mystery, it's neurobiology, precise and holy, built by design to return you to your center at will. Most people live years disconnected from it. They assume that calm is a luxury, that focus is a gift, that stress is inevitable. But you have the manual. It is written in the breath. You don't need to wait for peace to arrive from outside. You create it from within, one controlled breath at a time. You regulate your state not by accident, but by sacred participation in the breath that was placed in you with purpose. This is not passive. This is power. This is the weapon you carry into every storm. You don't have to yell. You don't have to run. You don't have to break. You breathe, and the entire system listens. The nervous system recalibrates. The mind sharpens, and the body obeys the new command, peace. The exhale is not just the end of a breath. It is a signal, a sacred instruction to your entire being. It is the part of the cycle that tells the body it is safe to release, to soften, to slow down. When you extend your exhalation intentionally, longer than your inhale, you aren't just moving air, you are moving chemistry, physiology, and consciousness. You are activating the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, the system responsible for rest, recovery, clarity, and calm. In the middle of chaos, when the world outside is loud and the world inside begins to shake, it's not your muscles or your intellect that lead, it's your breath. And the breath, especially the exhale, becomes your first act of command, not reaction, not retreat. Command. Each long exhale is like a message broadcast deep through your vagus nerve into your heart, your gut, your brainstem. And the message is simple. We are not in danger. The heart slows. The pupils widen. the digestive system rewakens. And the higher centers of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, strategy, and long-term vision, come back online. You are no longer in a reactive trance. You are returned to awareness, to precision, to choice. The exhale is the practice of letting go while holding power. It is the training ground of warriors and monks alike, not because it's mystical, but because it is mechanical, built into the system so deeply, so perfectly, that to use it is to align with your divine design. When people say, calm down, they offer advice. When you exhale slowly, you offer instruction. Not to others, to your own nervous system, and the body obeys, because your physiology doesn't respond to what you know, it responds to what you do. In the breath, knowledge becomes action, and with every long exhale, you lower the heart rate, you shift brain waves, you reduce the grip of adrenaline. You reclaim the body from panic. You steal attention back from fear. You breathe out fully, completely, and with it goes the chaos that tried to lodge itself in your chest. It leaves with the carbon dioxide. It dissolves in the rhythm, and what's left is space, focus, stillness. Not because the world changed, but because you took control of the lever that changes your world. One breath at a time. The most powerful part of the breath is not the inhale that fills you, but the exhale that releases you. Because it is in the letting go that the body remembers its strength. It is in the emptying that the mind becomes sharp. The exhale is where you do not fight the storm, you become the eye of it, silent, steady, unmoved. You are no longer at the mercy of your environment. You are no longer pulled by panic. You are centered, not by accident, but by sacred choice, through the gift you carry with you always, your breath. The physiological sigh is a breath pattern encoded deep in your biology, a hidden reset button built into your nervous system. It's not new, not invented, not a technique someone made up. It is ancient and automatic, something your body does spontaneously during deep sleep or after a long cry. It consists of 2 short inhales through the nose, followed by a long, extended exhale through the mouth. That second inhale is subtle, barely noticeable, but critical. It maximizes alveolar inflation, meaning it opens the small air sacs in the lungs that often collapse under stress or shallow breathing. When those sacs expand, they send a direct signal through mechanoreceptors that inform the brain. There is enough oxygen. There is no emergency. And when you follow that with a long exhale, you're not just blowing off air, you're triggering a parasympathetic cascade that begins to shift the entire state of your system from chaos to clarity. One physiological sigh can bring down your heart rate in under 30 seconds. That's not guesswork. That's measurable. It's been shown in controlled environments and observed in the lab, and it works outside the lab too, in traffic, on a stage, before a fight, after an argument, when you're spiraling through thought loops that seem to have no exit. In that moment, one deliberate sigh interrupts the signal. It breaks the loop. It resets the rhythm. It doesn't just mask stress, it metabolizes it. It moves the energy and recalibrates the brain-body connection. The sigh is a form of nervous system repentance, not of weakness, but of wisdom, a return to order through rhythm. When life overwhelms, most people reach for escape, but those who are trained, they reach for the breath. They know the code. 2 inhales, 1 long exhale, and the system listens. This is not mystical. This is biological. You don't have to wait for peace. You don't have to earn calm. You have to remember the sequence. You have to use the switch that God Himself built into the architecture of your being. When you engage in a physiological sigh, you're not just calming yourself, you're conditioning your nervous system to obey you. To stop being a servant to reaction and become a servant to discipline. There will always be noise. There will always be challenge, but the breath, your breath, can be the meeting place of chaos and control. The sigh is sacred because it reminds you that you are not your stress, you are not your panic, you are not lost. You are a system designed with precision, capable of resetting itself with a rhythm so simple, so small, and so powerful that most people overlook it their entire lives. But not you, you remember, you sigh, you return, and in that return is strength beyond words. Using the breath as a reset tool isn't just about calming down. It's about building a kind of mental armor that sharpens under pressure. When you learn to consciously regulate your breathing, you stop being a passive receiver of stress and start becoming an active architect of your internal state. The same mechanism that allows you to recover from anxiety is the one that can be trained to thrive under chaos. Every time you reset your system with a deliberate breath, you're not just restoring balance, you're rehearsing strength. You're building neural pathways that say, I can stay calm here, I can stay focused here, I don't break here. And over time, your nervous system learns. It adapts, it hardens in the fire, it stops panicking in response to pressure because pressure becomes familiar. Breath becomes your training ground for discipline, for resilience, for mental clarity that doesn't flinch in the face of adversity. This kind of training doesn't require a gym, a lab, or a therapist's office. It only requires intention. Every stressful moment becomes an opportunity to rehearse control, not through suppression, but through regulation. One breath, one moment, one decision to use what's already in your lungs to command what's in your mind. That's how warriors are made. That's how leaders are formed, not by avoiding stress, but by transforming the body's relationship to it. The breath becomes your rehearsal for the battlefield, the one at home, the one in the mind, the one in the arena. And when the moment comes, when the stakes are high and the noise gets loud, you don't collapse, you breathe. And the system follows. You'll notice it in moments where others freeze, when attention fractures and doubt creeps in. You won't have to think, your body will remember. You trained for this, you taught your heart to slow down. You taught your brain to stay sharp. You taught your focus to narrow in and pierce through the fog. That kind of mental strength doesn't come from wishing or hoping. It comes from breath, by breath obedience to a process of internal command, a process of self-governance, and the more you practice it, the more automatic it becomes. You won't be shaken by setbacks, you won't be ruled by emotions, you won't be enslaved by fear, because your breath becomes your anchor, and your anchor holds. Even in storms, especially in storms, this is not just a method, it is a way of being. It's the moment, by moment reclaiming of your own nervous system, your own attention, your own power. The world doesn't need more people who react to stress. It needs more people who are unmoved by it. And that level of command starts in the most ancient, most overlooked, most powerful place. The breath you carry inside your chest, right now, waiting to be used with purpose.